Welcome back, Calvary men and women, and all you game changers, you people that are out to just make a difference in this life. I'm your host, Chad Over Brochures. This is the Maturity Project. Oh, interesting subjects today, but the thought of the day that I wanted to break right into is what does it take to truly influence people, especially in a marketing campaign? Have you ever thought about when you go into places like Walmart or, like large grocery stores or casinos, large events, things like that? Have you ever listened to the music that they're playing? Have you paid attention to the imagery that they have? A lot of this stuff is we're just overwhelmed by the stimulus of being there. Like if you go into a casino, it's usually an attachment to gambling, or if you're going to go there drinking or a nightclub or whatever, because they do offer multiple things in most of the casinos that I've ever been to. But you go in with the attachment to what you're there for, not what you're listening to, not what you're necessarily seeing that's some sort of form of advertisement or something. But you get like music you haven't really heard of before, or music that you've heard of but not necessarily your favorite, or even music that you like but you don't know why you like it. It just seems to have a tune to it that you really really like. It resonates with you. Oh, but you don't really listen to the lyrics. You don't really pay much attention to it. You don't pay attention to the details of the imagery that you're looking at, as far as like, okay, well, Pepsi or Coke just flashed in front of your eyes. You see that stuff in movies, things like that. It's just fascinating to me, like how susceptible we are to these things. And then if it's really true that we're highly susceptible to them, at what point does it start to infringe on the concepts of free will? Because the more of that stuff you have that's subtly working in the background pushes you into specific corridors of thinking that limit your capacity to think outside of that. As a subject that I'll discuss here in just a second about emotions and the association with like emotions and the challenge of changing habits or behaviors because of that. Um, the same is to be true of when you start feeling any kind of emotional experience with visual aspects or stimulus, auditory, listening to things, stuff like that. You'll get this interesting emotional influence out of it. Anyway, just thoughts to have. It's like, how susceptible are we to these things? Oh, all right. Now let's get to the actual nuts and bolts of this. Still wondering why it is that I yawn whenever I do this. Probably, again, just not breathing enough. But anyway, all right. So today's conversation is about changing your mind and why sometimes it's so hard to change your mind. So first off, to understand that there's something to change. Look and pay attention to the environment that you're in. If you're not happy with where you are, what can you do about that? Well, as I actually talked about yesterday uh, with some of my social media, that when you want to change something specifically in your life, you have to be aware of what you want to change before you really make any kind of change out of it. Well, today's conversation is about when you're not completely satisfied with where you are, and you have put in work to make things different, but you haven't seen the kind of success that you're actually looking for. One, you're just not doing the right necessary changes, and it could be a very deep fundamental change, or it might be more of a superficial or immediate thing. I can't tell you that. I don't have enough information to tell you that, and even to look into it. So, but I will say this is that when you realize you're in a situation you don't want to be in, well, address the thinking that you have right now, as you may not be able to change the circumstances and the environment you're in immediately, like right this very second, but you start the strategy to get you out of it. And the strategy starts with the way you think. It's like martial arts. If you plan to actually do a very good job defending yourself, you may want to be able to analyze the situation and respond to that environment in such a way that you can almost seem like you're predicting the other person's behavior, and that increases your survivability of that situation or reduction of harm or what do you, the things you don't want to experience. So, but first off, so not first off, I apologize. Well, anyway, you decide you want to change something. Well, you have to think about what that is that you want to change. So you're putting some thought into it. What specifically is it you want to change? And then you kind of reverse engineer that, if you will, and you start thinking about the emotions that are associated with it, or feeling out the emotions associated with that particular thought. Here's the thing about it is that all thoughts have the potential to actually have emotional companionship or emotional foundations. So if you're not addressing the emotional influence, then it's going to be real hard to get the thought to will itself out of where you're dealing, or whatever you're dealing with, because it gets sticky. The emotions are very, very sticky when it comes to change. So you have to look at what other emotions are associated with that. An exercise I gave on social media is the exercise of thinking of two very different things at one time, like love and hate. Think about those two at the same time and come up with a situation where you actually loved loved and hated the same, even at the same level. Now, with that exercise, then you want to look at, okay, is it easier to consider that emotions have like emotions, things that they communicate well with? Misery and sadness communicate well with each other. The stark contrast is, if you wanted to have one really contrasting value, is, happiness and hatred. Very, very challenging to think of those two things at the same time in such a way that you're qualifying that something is that. It has to have some sort of caveat. Some other caveat associated with it. So, if you really want to make that kind of suitable and long-term change, you have to look at the stickiness of emotions and then work with that. If, let's say, jealousy is an emotional issue that you're dealing with, or emotional stoppage, then what is jealousy coming from? And it's nearly always lack of confidence that leads to insecurities that create control mechanisms that try to reduce the person's autonomy, so that they're less likely to leave you. Jealousy is a hell of a thing, very emotionally motivated. There's often a strategy associated with it in some degree, or at least it gives the opportunity for strategy to be born out of it. So yeah, it's just, if you want to make change, look at what's anchoring the ideas back, because the ideas first. Once you've determined in your mind you want to make change, then you look at the idea itself and see how valid that is. And then you look at the emotions that are associated with it, and you start planning and plotting from there. Big challenges that we face are just people seem to be more caught up with the interest of others than we do about our own about ourselves. If you want something different, we have to do different. We can't do what we've done in the past, and we can't do a repeat of what we did 20 years ago. It really will require that we do something we have not done before. So, all right, this is going to be a short video, simple and sweet, right to the point. This is the Maturity Project. I'm your host, Chad Everett Broshears. I do apologize. I am feeling actually pretty tired today. Not been sleeping that well, going through some stuff here that I'm growing through what I'm going through, and I always will. And just because you see me where it seems like I'm wore down a little bit, that doesn't mean that I'm actually not getting the opportunity for a great upswing. It's just, it is what it is. So, all right, with that, share this video with a person in your life you want to make a difference with, some conversation of meaning. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. We all know that, right? and help with the algorithm, help with supporting me, and contribute to the community maturity. All right. Till next time, again, I'm your host, Chad Everett Shears. This is the Maturity Project. Remember, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. We got enough people that have made some really great arguments with some real strong intentions for hell, really, or self-interest or whatever it might be. We don't have to have that. All right. Well, till next time. Let's get up to some stuff. Let's get up to it together. All right. We'll see ya.